Last year, Baylor faced Texas Tech at Dallas Cowboys Stadium in Arlington live on Fox Sports. An eventual Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, Robert Griffin III, was knocked out of the game after a blow to the head you see there. That brought on junior Nick Florence. He hadn't thrown a pass all season long, but in a pinch, Florence came up big time, completing 9 of 12 passes for over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, helping the Bears roll up more than 600 total yards, and they beat the Red Raiders in a shootout, 66-42. Well, welcome back to Big 12 Showcase. I'm Lesley McCaslin, and speaking of what big shoes left to fill by RG3, those enormous shoes, Nick Florence may seem to have the lead on filling them this fall, but Bears coach Art Briles says that decision is still far from being made.
Not really. You know, we hadn't even discussed it. I hadn't discussed it with them. So we'll just, we'll play it out and see. It's not going to be a deal where we're trying to make headlines or, anything along that capacity. I mean, what we're just trying to do is get the best guy in at the right time to help us win.
Well, Nick Florence, Bryce Petty also in the mix there. They have some holes to fill, but they also bring in some veterans. What do you think things look like after spring ball?
Well, replacing Robert Griffin III, not going to happen. But I think that, they're going to get good quarterback play. This offense is always going to be explosive. And when you look at some of the other, they've got some veteran wide receivers, Lanier Sampson, Terrence Williams, Tevin Reese. These guys have kind of, supported Kendall Wright, who's the leading receiver that's gone now. They've got to have one guy that steps up and be like Kendall Wright in a 3rd and long situation, say, hey, I'm going to get open and I'm going to make the catch. If one of those guys can do that, this offense will be totally fine. Nick Florence, as a freshman, and then last year, he proved he could come in and make plays. Bryce Petty is more of kind of like the Blake Bell type at Oklahoma, where he's a little bit more of a runner. But I think they've got plenty of options offensively. Running back's a key. Terrence Ganaway's gone, but Lake Seastrunk, who went to Oregon, a Texas guy, comes back. He had a big spring game, 7 carries, 135 yards, a 75-yard touchdown. So I think the talent is there offensively.
Absolutely. Lake Seastrunk broke off a big, almost 80-yard run when we were there at the spring game. And then defensively, Phil Bennett in his 2nd year, what do you expect from their defense?
They've got to get better defensively. I mean, the reason they won 10 games last year wasn't because of the defense that finished 116th in the nation. Now, this is the 2nd season that Phil Bennett's been there. I think the defense has a lot of talent. They just kind of need to learn to play more how Bennett wants them to play. But I think it'll be a key. I think this, Baylor team is totally capable of becoming bowl eligible again. They could win 6, 7, 8 games. The more games they win, it's going to depend on how good the defense is. Absolutely.
Well, as we talk about this fall, we talk about the schedule. We see the early appearance in Morgantown as they go to face West Virginia, and they'll usher in the debut of the Big 12 football for the Mountaineers.
Right, and I think that'll be a big game for West Virginia fans, so that's going to be a tough game for Baylor to go there and play. That is a tough place to play. Now, the start of the season, the SMU game is going to be challenging, but I think, Baylor's got to be 3-0 going into conference play. And then they follow up West Virginia with TCU, Texas, and at Iowa State. If they think the game at Iowa State, we finally got through the tough stretch, they can't look at it that way. And then they close, as we said before, and we're going to be saying all year long, that's a tough closing stretch for Baylor.
Absolutely. From Baylor, we go to Texas Tech. The Raiders come off a 5-7 season, one of just 2 Big 12 teams that weren't bowl qualified. Plenty of starters return, especially on offense, but it's the defense everybody wants to know about, because last year Tech was 117th in the nation for points allowed out of 120 teams. But now they have a new defensive coordinator, yet again in Art Kaufman.
4th defensive coordinator in the last 4 years. That's a lot of schemes to learn. That's a lot of terminology to learn. Now, they do have a lot of starters coming back, and the new defensive coordinator is Art Kaufman, and he's a veteran defensive coordinator. But as you said, Lesley, they've got to get much better. The last 5 games, they gave up 259 points. That's about 52 a game. I mean, even a PlayStation 3 offense can't keep up with that. And in 8 of the games last year, they allowed 34 or more points. Now, they've got a newcomer coming in, a guy named Will Smith, a junior college linebacker who's supposed to be an impact player. Will Smith, well, they got to get jiggy with it.
Absolutely. They had a lot of injuries last year, 24 around the team. But on offense, they're coming back. Seth Dagey is at quarterback. There's a guy they know they can count on. They saw what he could do last year.
Exactly. I don't think there's really too many issues on the offensive side. Dagey, the offense averaged 345 yards passing a game. And that's, not going to lead the Big 12, but it's plenty good enough. And I think they're going to run the ball a little bit more effectively. Offense is not an issue. Most of the receivers are coming back. The key, kind of like it is at Baylor, what we talked about, how good Texas Tech's going to be as far as number of wins is going to be how good the defense and how much they improve.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked about the defensive struggles of the Red Raiders last year, but let's hear from Coach Tommy Tuberville on his thoughts about the defense in 2012.
It's going to be interesting to see how this defense comes around, but we've got a lot of room for improvement. We gave up a lot of points. It wasn't fun last year on defense. They tried hard, they practiced hard, but we just got beat up pretty good because there were some very, very good offenses in this league last year from top to bottom.
Absolutely, and the offenses won't be getting much worse around the league as we look ahead for Tech this fall. Here's the schedule. We see a very challenging October, 2 tough road games with TCU and K-State, then 2 home games against Oklahoma and West Virginia.
Right. I think the start is going to be really key for Texas Tech. Those 3 first games, those are winnable. The Iowa State game, if they can go to Iowa State and win, they can be 4-0, and then they're going to start a really tough stretch where they're going to have Oklahoma, West Virginia, then at TCU, at K-State. Those are 4 schools right there that are going to think coming into this season are going to say, you know what, we got a chance to win the Big 12 or be high in the standings. Then they get Texas, Kansas might be a little bit of a breather, but who knows with Charlie Weiss. Then at Oklahoma State and Baylor, that might be the toughest closing stretch when you talk about starting with basically starting conference play. I mean, that's a very difficult schedule.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Wendell, so much for being with us. Of course, we'll continue to follow your work covering the Big 12 and every sport throughout the season at Big12Sports.com. Well, up next on Big 12 Showcase, we'll discuss a huge championship weekend for the conference coming up.